Thank you for tuning into the Conscious Hour. It's today's update, and it's a discussion. Well, we know one thing for sure. Most people don't trust politicians. That's just a given. And Trump is in a very compromised situation right now because there's people that want to, basically indict him, etc. He's got lots of problems. But the big thing that's happening right now is there's a lot of distortion of reality of really what's going on. And I want you to listen closely to Colonel Macgregor kind of laying it out for you, and then I'll give some comments to tell you how we can bring it together so we can maybe make a difference so we don't go into a full-fledged war. Listen closely to what Colonel Macgregor's saying.
But we also know there are problems with the munitions, and we are waiting for resupply, and we're bringing more aircraft into the theater. So there are other things going on here as well. So my point is, when you look at the three doors, you could try door 3 again, but that hasn't been very fruitful. So you're really being pushed back to door number 1, which is all-out war.
And as you say, there's a problem with door number 1 again, aside from the fact that it didn't work the first time and the target set and the Iranians underground caverns under these granite mountains, that hasn't changed either. But there is something different than the last time we tried door number 1, is that virtually all of our long-range precision missiles, according to reports, are running low, and that's the interceptors, and that's the offensive missiles, etc. But this morning, President Trump said, yeah, that's not true. He says the U.S. has massive amounts of munitions, especially of certain types. Additionally, large amounts are being manufactured and shipped to the U.S. as needed. Defense companies are building the largest number of plants and factories in our country's history. The leakers of these treasonous statements are being hunted down. Long-term jail sentences will be sought.
Okay, we're building factories to build more munitions, more missiles. No, we aren't building any factories to build more missiles. In fact, the time it takes to build missiles, it can extend out to more than a year. So basically, we have maybe 2,000 missiles left. And Iran has mountains full of missiles. We're talking not thousands, more than 10,000 missiles without even trying. And why I say that is, if you do your research, which is what I do at the Conscious Hour, I've seen videos years ago of their underground weapons production facilities. They put those on the news. I mean, not on the news, but on the internet. You could pick it up and find it. They get in these cars and they drive for miles through these underground, basically, cities. So Trump is living in a delusional state right now because he's panicked. One, he could be indicted for war crimes because he's, look what we're doing. 2, he's got the, people want to get him out of office. And 3, what are we going to do? You and the public going to do to turn this thing around? Right now, it's full speed ahead. And the unfortunate part of this is we're putting all of our soldiers in harm's way because there's no way we can win this war. None. It's impossible. Especially when you consider the fact that Russia might get involved, China might get involved. Iraq now is saying, hey, we've had enough of the U.S. So you think that we're going to be successful? And you did see some damage done, if you're watching the mainstream news, of how all these other small countries had their bases wiped out. CIA, one of the CIA main sections, I can't remember which country it was in right in a second, but it was wiped out. So we aren't winning this thing at all. And we're putting all of our men and women in harm's way for somebody who is not dealing with a full deck. I hate to say that, but is not giving truthful information to the American public.
So who's true? Is President Trump right, or is the media right?
Well, the media, forget the media. They're saying some things here about the missile stocks, precision-guided munition stocks, that frankly people have been saying for weeks and weeks and weeks. It's not a secret. So I don't know what he's talking about in terms of leakers. What I can tell you is that the defense industry, if you ask somebody at the top of the defense industry, I talked recently to someone who spent much of his life in it. He said, let's understand something, Doug. First of all, there is no declared war. In the absence of a declared war, we haven't mobilized industry. we're expecting industry to behave today the way it behaved in 1944-45 without mobilization. That's the first thing. You've got to essentially move resources, people, capabilities from the private sector into the defense sector. We haven't done it, and we're not going to get the outcome that he wants. The other thing is, there's a big difference between building missiles and putting together jeeps or tanks. You're not just screwing on lug nuts. You're dealing with assembly lines that are very complex. They involve human beings, not just robotics. There's some robotics, but a lot of it is human intervention to ensure that the microchips, the microcircuitry, and everything else is where it belongs, because these are very expensive. It's use it once, throw it away. If you're going to use it, it has to work. And most of what we produce does have good reliability. Now, we can argue about the air and missile defense. That's a different issue. And a lot of that technology is not new. But if you look at the standard missiles, you look at the strike weapons that we have, those are really state of the art, and they have a very good performance rating. But you can't just produce them, crank them out the way we cranked out Sherman tanks or B-17 bombers. It doesn't work that way. So we got to say those things. And I think Trump, I assume he knows that. And these threats about people leaking, nobody's leaked anything of real significance. I certainly have never seen anything that I thought was classified. But there is such a thing as general knowledge. And people in the armed forces are not stupid. Sailors, soldiers, airmen, and Marines know what is real and what isn't. They know what they've got and what they don't.
And we've had some high-level commanders who have basically said, we don't have the capacity. We cannot build the weapons fast enough, because what they saw Iran do to the Gulf nations, it shocked, pardon the expression, the shit out of those in our military who were underestimating the capacity of Iran. This is the Conscious Hour, folks. Thanks for tuning in, and please share this with others, and call your congressional representatives and tell them they need to shut this thing down. No more funding, nothing. They just need to do a blanket, we're done. Pull out, bring our men and women home, and be done with it. And Netanyahu, he'll have to do what he's got to do. Thanks for tuning into the Conscious Hour. It's your Conscious Hour, folks.